Thank you so much for coming this evening. So this is our next in our series with the Alliance for Science, a partnership that we've been doing for a while now. But I want to let you know just about some of the other library programs that we have going on for all ages. So weekly we have a toddler story time, we have a baby time, and we just started a preschool yoga class, which is really fun. The teens have a chess club, and we've been doing all ages monthly chess tournaments. So we just had one on Saturday. We had a family of 5 who medaled in all the different divisions, which was really cool. So there's some really, really good chess players on this island. But there are also some people who are learning, and it's a really great opportunity to get tournament experience if you haven't had any. So there are flyers on the table. You're welcome to take one. Thank you. This month we are having a double header for Alliance for Science. So in 2 weeks, on September 30th, we're having Dr. Larry Farber. He's from the U.S. Geological Survey in Boulder, Colorado. And he's going to be coming to talk about natural contaminant chemistry of Hawaiian fresh waters. So put that on your calendar. I'm going to have Jan and Kate introduce our speakers tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra. I'm on, I guess you call it the organizing committee for the Alliance for Science. Several of us here are members of that organization. The person who normally does the introductions is off on the mainland, and so I'm stuck with doing it. I'm also on the board at KIUC, so I have a familiarity with our speaker, Brad Rockwell, who's the power supply manager at KIUC. He's been instrumental in leading our earth-shaking move into renewables. We're doing it, we think, faster than any utility in the country. Brad's been in large part responsible for that. He is the power supply manager. He is a captain in the Navy. He's a mechanical engineer, and he is your speaker tonight. And here he comes.
Okay, well, thanks for coming out tonight. I also get to drive the presentation, so a lot of friendly faces out there, a couple folks I don't know, but I look forward to getting to hear from you tonight. I'll get right into it. I'm just going to throw this up. I throw this up on a lot of talks I give because it kind of underscores some of the challenges we have when it comes to delivering electricity on this island. And to me, it makes a lot of sense as to why things are the way they are when it comes to rates and renewables and things like that. When you look at this, not only are we isolated, but we're also a really small island, and our grid isn't connected anywhere else. And so that presents some challenges that we'll kind of talk about. I pulled this information from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and just wanted to kind of highlight a couple points. We are, as a state, driving toward 100% renewables. What that means, we can get into a little bit tonight. Yes, our rates are high in the state, but we use very little electricity, so that means our bills aren't necessarily the highest in the country. Our bills are actually pretty reasonable when you look at it, even though the rates are high. We just don't use a lot of electricity. Most people don't have air conditioning. Nobody heats really here. And a lot of our time is spent outdoors, so we're not necessarily using a lot of electricity, which is a good thing. Interesting, they talk about geothermal, and if you've been following things, you know that the Puna geothermal venture on the Big Island is actually offline still as of, I think it was April of 2018, and it's sort of unclear as to when it's going to come back online, if it will come back online. But the biggie is petroleum. There's no other utility in the country other than those in Hawaii and a few in Alaska that really rely heavily on petroleum to provide electricity. The continent is using natural gas, nuclear, coal, and large hydro for most of their electricity. We have none of the sources here. A few stats about Kauai, and some of this we do have a pretty heavy visitor loading throughout the year, and it's worth pointing out that our rates wouldn't be what they are without those visitors, so they do carry some of the burden. We are the only electric cooperative in the state, and I'm happy to talk about that, and fortunately we have one of our board members here as well to help answer any questions about that. Things take us there. We talked about rates already in consumption. Statistics of the grid, and unfortunately this is a science talk, so I get to put lots of charts and numbers up here. You don't have to really use a lot of words, but just some statistics you can see, and I'm happy to talk or answer any questions about this. One thing that's notable is we just, in early August, just a little over a month ago, hit our all-time record peak demand on the island, which had not previously been set, or was previously set in December of 2007. So it's been a long time since we'd set a new record. If you think back to December 2007, the economy was booming. It was right before things turned. Tourism on the island was booming, and there was a lot of development, and then things kind of went south and didn't really get back there until just recently. The other thing that happened between now and 2007 was solar PV, and the county ordinance that prevented any new construction from putting electric hot water heaters in their homes. So now you have to put either solar or on-demand gas heaters. And so a lot of those things used to contribute to our peak. Not to mention lighting. Lighting has changed since you go back to 2007. Most people had incandescent lights still probably, and everyone went to CFLs and then to LEDs. And so all those things, kind of the economy, efficiency measures, things like that, and solar took us all the way until now to get to that peak. And you can see the mix of things we have here. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Some of the goals we have as a company set by our board of directors, which you see their faces there. The board sets our policy, they handle governance, they set our strategy. Staff like myself and the other managers of the company execute that. But some that relate to what we're going to talk about tonight here. Our goal is 70% by 2030 as far as renewables. We're currently around the 50 to 55% range. We want to be diversified, and we want to control costs, and we want to maintain reliability while we're increasing our renewable energy share. That 99.96% number it equates to about 2.5 hours or 3.5 hours of average outage time per year for a customer. And that's average, right? So some people, if you live on the circuit that feeds Wilcox Hospital or KVMH, your power hardly ever goes out. Others, if you live in Colorado like I do, where there's not many businesses and there's no hospital, your power goes out more probably. But on average, 3.5 is our target. A little bit about rates. So you see those goals that the board sets. The renewable one I'm going to come back to, and that's going to be the bulk of what we'll talk about, but I want to address the controlling cost and also the reliability just in a few slides here. If you look at how has our costs changed over the last year, we're actually down almost 10%. So we're proud to be able to say that. Costs are actually less than they were last year. We look at the other islands in the state. Some are about the same, some are down. So that's sort of our competition, if you will. As a franchise electric utility that has a natural monopoly, it's hard to find competition out there, so we like to compare ourselves to the other islands of the state. When I talk about KIUC rate premium, this is how much higher are our rates than the other islands, just in the last 3 years. If you look, for example, back in 2016, KIUC's rates were about 30% higher than Oahu, about 7 or so % higher than Big Island, and about 19% higher than Maui. If you look till today, you can see a clear trend of how our our cost controls and our renewable energy efforts are resulting in a much better against the competition. So we're now typically about 10% higher than Oahu, and we're reaching parity with Maui. We're better than Big Island and certainly better than Molokai and Lanai. So don't let anyone tell you we have the highest rates in the country. It's not even the highest in the state.
But we hear that all the time.
We do hear it. It's a common thing. People like to say it all over the place. Everyone in the country thinks their rates are too high. Talking about reliability, this is a really messy chart, and it has to be because the scale, some years are really bad. But we're the purple line, and this is what this is minutes of outage time for the average customer per year. This is a IEEE index called SAIDI, System Average Interruption Duration Index. And so this green line is that target that the board has set of the 99.96% reliability. And you can see that for the most part we've been under it. I can tell you this year we're going to be over it. We had a pretty large outage, which I'll talk a little bit about back in July. And but compared to the other islands in the state, again, I think we're doing okay. I'd always like to see this better, and we're striving to get it much better. So renewable energy, I'm going to spend most of the time. What is this? I thought it'd be good to kind of level set expectations here. Naturally replenishing, but flow limited, virtually inexhaustible duration, limited in the amount of energy that is available per year at a time. Major types of renewable energy, I say major, it's not all. When we talk about major types, you can also think of it as those that are sort of commercially proven. If I have to supply you electricity reliably, I'm gonna look for a company that is gonna provide me with the technology that is bankable, that's gonna be there when I call them. I know we're here to talk about science, but I'm not looking to do science projects with our electric grid necessarily. We can do some pilot projects, and we have done them in the past, but frankly, we're a pretty small company. We've got a staff of less than 150, and the amount of bandwidth it takes us few engineers to do pilots and tests and things like that, we could be spending it to do real projects and making real renewable progress. But biomass is sort of a broad category, and we do have a biomass plant on island that does wood, the green energy biomass plant near Maluia area, and they're actually doing a sustainable forestry operation. First, largely supplying plant with albizia trees, and then they're growing a variety of eucalyptus that you see around the island. You're seeing like large stands of albizia being cleared, and they're planting back with eucalyptus in a managed forestry operation, like a plantation. And there's a lot of trees you can't see from the road that they've got in growth as well. And they expect every 4 to 5 years or so they'll be harvesting about 1/4 or 1/5 and feeding that to the plant. No municipal solid waste, landfill gas, biogas, or ethanol on the island. We have done some biodiesel at our Port Island plant, but it's not something we're doing actively because it is somewhat cost prohibitive. Hydropower we have a lot of, and we're looking to do more. Geothermal, not possible on Hawaii because we're too old geologically, same with Oahu. And then wind has been a challenge for us because of sort of the trifecta. Lots of endangered bird species on island. Our wind regimes, frankly, aren't as good as Big Island and Maui, and our economy of scale we're a lot smaller of a grid, and so it makes it a little bit challenging. Solar we've done a lot of, and it's very scalable. We've been successful with that. The state passed a law in June of 15. So these are the mandates that we have to meet. 30% by 2020, we're already past that. 40% by 2030, we're already past. 70% by 2040. Remember, our board set a target that's more aggressive than this, 70% by 2030. And then the biggie, 2045, everyone 100%. But this picture's good because if you look in here, there's only one person from the utility business. He's kind of hiding behind the governor there. The rest were really clean energy advocates. You know, I don't know that anyone had a clear path. It's just one of those where you set the goal, you have a vision, and then let's see if we can meet it. So how have we been doing? The slide shows from 2010 to 2019 where we were and where we are today. We've expanded our renewables significantly. We've added more hydro. We've added a new source in biomass and a lot of solar. Back in 2010, which isn't that long ago, we had virtually no solar. Really, not many people had PV on the road. Just a few small systems. You go back a few years before that, we did a renewable energy technology study that looked at all types of technologies, that PV is not worth pursuing because it's too expensive back then. So the lesson for us is remaining nimble and being able to move quickly when technology does change. But during that same period of time, 4% electric sales growth, and you can see the same total cost, but now 52% of it is fixed and known, and only the oil portion is volatile. So you may have noticed the rates have been very stable the last few years. Your electric bill might be higher than what you want, but it's not moving much. You go back to these days, when even that hydro portion, the rate we paid was tied to the price of oil. So 100% of that was moving with oil every month. And businesses would come to us, they would come to Ed and say, how do I plan? What should I plan next year for my electricity costs?
And 5% at 10%.
Yeah, and we do our best to provide that with them, but it was very hard for businesses to plan. So we made good progress on that, and still a lot of work to be done. What has that done for greenhouse gas emissions? We have blown past our 1990, which was sort of the benchmark for the Kyoto Protocol. We're well below that, and it's going to only keep dropping. This kind of little uptick is nothing to be too worried about, because 2019 will come way down because we've added a huge project online at the end of 18 that isn't really reflected there. So our megawatt hour sales are back on the increase and probably trending up toward record levels where they were in 2007, while our greenhouse gas emissions are trending down toward record levels, which is a good thing. Where are we going? 2025, which is reflective of everything we have online today, plus the PMRF solar and storage project that's in construction at the Navy base, plus a very innovative solar pump storage hydro project that we have in development on the west side, is what this reflects. And so that west side project, which has a hydro component and a solar component, and is using the difference in elevation between two reservoirs to act as the battery, is what's reflected in the increase in solar and the increase in hydro. So we're looking to get our oil share down to 24% by 2025, maybe even sooner. We've been saying 2023, 2025. We have a fair amount of work left to do on that project, and so it's a little, we're a little reluctant to commit exactly when that will start construction and when it will complete. And that's something we'll definitely need community support for. Solar can't do everything, even though it is becoming a large chunk, and we love it. If you think back to that outage we had, the island-wide outage, was July 21st. It was a Sunday. This is what Saturday, the day before, looked like as far as our midnight to midnight dispatch. So this is kind of a typical load curve or demand curve on the island. We have our low point of demand in the middle of the morning, around 3 a.m. We have a morning peak as people get up and they start using electricity. And then we have sort of a midday low, and really the actual demand, if I were able to plot customers' rooftop solar here, which it's not easy for me to do, that midday demand would be sort of like this. It doesn't really drop in the midday. It stays pretty stable because people are still using electricity. But everyone's rooftop solar systems are producing at max. And so there's a lot of demand that is being met by self-generation that we don't see. And then in the evening or the late afternoon when everyone's solar systems are starting to drop off and people are coming home from work and it's getting dark and they're going inside and they're using electricity, we have a very sharp peak. It typically happens about an hour after sunset. And then everyone in Kauai goes to bed early and it falls off. And so that's what Saturday looked like the day before. The orange is stored solar energy that we're dispatching after the evening peak from our batteries. The yellow is solar, the green is a biomass plant, and the blue is all the hydros we have on the gray is oil. So the outage occurs on Sunday, the 21st, which was sort of a normal Kauai day. We were short on generation because our largest single unit was offline and it wasn't going to come back for a while. We needed to do a lot of repairs. And we had actually had some other, another unit go down on this day. That, on that day, wasn't a big deal because it was a smaller unit of 4 down. And we had another unit down for a scheduled overhaul. So we became constrained with our oil dispatch units. And so when we restored the island on Sunday afternoon from the outage, we started mapping out what does it look like, knowing that we're not going to get our largest unit back. We saw that we were going to be able to get through the evening peak on Sunday, but sometime around here, all the energy stored in our batteries would be gone, and our oil capacity wouldn't be able to, it would be less than what the demand was projected to be. So we had to do a little bit of rolling blackout Sunday night. And then Monday morning, we knew that before the sun was going to come up, the demand was going to climb again from people waking up. And it was going to again rise above what our conventional oil dispatch would allow. So we have to do some more rolling blackouts. And then it was just a matter of how long that we continue. Was the sun going to show up? Were we going to get a good showing from our solar assets? And it was a horrible solar day. This is what we got on July 22nd, the Monday after the outage. And this drives home the need that, you know, there's, some people think you can do it all with solar. And there's gonna be days like this that we won't get the contribution from solar. We need the hydro, we need the biomass. And so just remember that. We even need our oil-fired units to be there, maybe only a day a year, but we need them to be maintained there. And maybe eventually we can replace oil with biodiesel or something like that, that even when we're running those, they're renewable. So going back to the state renewable energy mandate, the first two we've checked the box on. The next one we think we have a pretty good handle on. And then the one I like to talk about, 100%, you know, what does that really mean? Is 99% good enough? 90%? You know, let's see, do you get to 95 and then you do a little bit of biodiesel for the rest? And it's not that big of a deal on the electric bill because even though the fuel's expensive, it's such a small share. Let's talk about the rest of the state for a second. This is pulled from the Hawaiian Electric website. And so this is 2018 full year data. So you can see Oahu is less than 20% renewable. Big Island, which used to be the leader of the state at well over 50%, has now fallen to only 36%. And Maui's even dropped off a little bit in recent years, to about 32%. A lot of people don't realize that we do burn coal in the state on Oahu. And of course, they're all about 2/3 oil still. And so that's what the other islands are doing. And they've got a challenge, specifically on Oahu, where it's extremely urban. Renewables take a lot of land, and I'm not quite certain how you get there on Oahu, frankly. How you get to 100%. There was a proposal years ago where they were going to overbuild renewables on Maui and maybe Lanai. So they've got some real challenges as to how they're gonna get there. So, we're unique. There are no transmission intertidal between the islands. Unless you have storage, you can't really balance things. We talked about these, what most of the world, how they get their power. These two are outlaw. They're against, no new nuclear or coal plants in the state, not allowed. Gas, the governor came out against LNG a few years ago. So that looks like it's off the table. We were exploring the possibility of bringing that in as sort of a bridge fuel until we can get to 100% renewables. That didn't really succeed. And large hydro, unless you're willing to dam up large valleys, that's probably not going to be a source here either. Economy of scale is a big deal, and land. Renewables, you're going to have to get used to seeing these all over the island. You're going to see, I don't know if you follow the news, people are protesting against wind farms on the North Shore of Oahu. I've done community meetings for solar projects on this island where people have been less than thrilled with having to look at solar projects. And I've told them it's very easy for me to continue burning oil in a little corner of the island down in Port Allen, but I don't think that's what we all want. So you gotta get used to seeing renewables all over the island. That's just, oil's really great in energy density. There's a lot of energy in a little drop of oil, but there's ramifications. Even in Hawaii, every island is different. We are only 1/3 the size of the grid on Maui or Hawaii, so we're much more constrained than them when it comes to economy of scale challenges. 1/12 the size of Oahu. The biomass plant we do have is our most expensive power right now, so we're not looking to do more. So when you think about that list of all the major renewable technologies, you're already down to biomass, hydro, and solar. Now you can cross biomass off. So we're down to hydro and nuclear are only two options. And this has been challenged. We've had a lot of folks come out against some of our existing hydro plants. And our position is we're not ready to take anything off the table yet. We need all solutions until we can get comfortable to 100% or near there. We're not willing to give up on any of them at this point. Here's all the projects we have online, in development and construction. So you can see it pretty much all over the island. And with that, I'm ready to take any questions or talk about whatever you like. Thanks so much.
So I'm curious, let's see, so the projections like going up to 2030, right, for power needed in that graph. I think I saw 4 kilowatt or something per year ad on demand side.
Talking about the pie
Okay.
chart.
Doesn't matter. I guess, here's my question. So with like the global warming piece, where basically a lot of the scientists are saying, look, we got about 10 years. In 10 years, we have to get like 80% of our transportation like electric. So are you guys modeling at all right now that scenario? So, hey, 80% of the vehicles, semi-trucks, cars, everything on island, 10 years out, 80% of them are going to be electric, what that number is, and there's a path towards that?
I would say 80%. I've done a fair amount of modeling and looking at some pretty aggressive EV growth numbers and what our installed capacity is. And I think with what the key was, what I mentioned before, being nimble and watching how things change and being able to, if we start to see a real takeoff, boom, we're doing more solar and battery storage because the batteries are really great at handling that peak. Whenever that demand comes. So we have to accelerate getting more, but at this point, accelerating without that demand growth is a challenge because so we don't have anywhere to send the excess. So if I put more renewables online now and nobody's using the power.
Yeah, so I think that's a communication between the government, the public, and you guys, because if we could get the demand going faster with renewables, there's potential to get rates down faster, maybe demand the cruise ships plug in, they have hybrid cruise ships right now, and look at get some of that stuff just, off the table so we can get that demand up and rates down for everybody and accelerate some stuff. And EVs could be part of that, I guess. If you can get excess in the daytime, why not feed them and sell it back? It works out, So I think those questions should be asked in your boardrooms and whatnot, because I think that's what's going to become more and more apparent as necessary. So
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
What are the consequences for utilities that are not meeting the objectives that were set in law? It looks like Oahu right now has missed some of the timelines that were set.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's going to be up to the Public Utility Commission and the state as far as what the impacts will be. The first test of that will come in 2020 when 30% mark comes. And the way Hawaiian Electric companies do it is they submit a consolidated RPS, or Renewable Portfolio Standard. So I think they were 27% for 2018. We'll see where they come in for 2019. I think they'll be still below 30, and then for 2020, will they actually achieve 30% or not? And if they don't, I think they'll be close, but we'll see what they say about that. They're in a tough spot because do they penalize them monetarily, and then the ratepayers have to suck that out? Do they take it from shareholder profits maybe because they're an investor-owned utility? Not sure.
How about using the tides or the waves for energy generation? Is that, I believe Oahu was looking into that?
There is a wave energy demonstration on the east side of Oahu. That one is, from what I've seen on that, it's extremely expensive right now. It was very expensive, and it's still in demonstration. So we're monitoring that one. Tides is, tidal range in Hawaii is not very large because we're so close to the equator, but there's some pretty good tidal energy projects. I know over in Korea, I think, and in the UK, where you get some higher latitudes. That's definitely viable.
We had mentioned, go ahead.
What's the risk from your perspective of over-reliance on solar and battery?
I think it was, you want to be as diversified as possible. I mean, think of it like an investment portfolio. Same thing, there's going to come that day when the sun doesn't come out and everyone needs power. So what do you do? What's your alternative? Hydro is a nice complement because typically when it is really cloudy, you're getting more rain in the mountains. And so those two technologies tend to complement each other pretty well. I'd love to be able to add some wind in if we could, but it's got its own host of challenges we talked about. So that's the challenge. We saw it best when we had to cut power after the island-wide outage.
How vulnerable is solar to hurricanes and increasing storms?
Yeah, it is, just like the docks that are vulnerable that deliver our oil, just like wind turbine towers would be. So most of our, I think Cat 1 to potentially up to a Cat 3 hurricane, you're going to see some damage, but probably not catastrophic on the solar farms. You get above Cat 3 and above, I think it's kind of all bets are off.
How about the ones in the houses on the roofs?
Yeah, those would probably be more vulnerable. I mean, when we're doing our utility scale solar projects, we are building to a certain standard. I think the, inside of a lot, typically the external rows that are up against the winds more are a little more susceptible to damage than the ones that are internal. They're somewhat shielded by the other panels, whereas on a rooftop, it's a little more of anyone's guess, depending on the condition of the roof, the age of the roof, who the installer was. Yeah.
Since you mentioned hurricanes, can you talk a little bit about undergrounding power lines? It kind of ties to possibly building wind if you were able to underground in a flight corridor, for example, and build wind somewhere less vulnerable, for example.
Yeah. We like being able to underground whenever we can. It is very expensive. It's the only downside. And I will say it's not, it doesn't mean that there's no outages. Typically when there's some areas of the island, like up in Princeville, there's a lot of underground distribution. When they have outages, those faults can sometimes take a lot longer to find because now the guys are having to look underground in vaults, whereas sometimes overhead you see a line down, it's really easy, right? You see it, you fix it. We've tried to focus on undergrounding a lot, especially in sort of our Ligui core, doing a hardening and getting at least where we can come back up fairly quickly after a major disaster and power the center of commerce on the island. And then, the challenge would be transmission lines distribution is about 12,500 volts, or transmission is 69,000 volts. That is way more expensive than just distribution. And so getting those transmission, which is really the backbone of our network around the island, getting that underground would be exorbitantly expensive. And so we don't want to have to put that burden on even higher rates. But I think we do it wherever it makes sense to, especially if we're rebuilding.
Requiring homes to have backup power, either wall mounted or vehicle or whatever, maybe be part of the solution, reducing demand and having some backup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a homeowner, right, and I don't even have solar on my house. I mean, I guess I'm a believer in the grid, right? I'm trying to make the whole grid renewable, and I believe in the power community and networking. If I were to put solar on my roof and then put battery to have a backup, eventually you're still using the grid. Eventually, if I said to the utility, come take your lines away, I don't even need you. The amount of battery I need then goes up, exponentially for that cloudy week, right? Unless you're willing to alter your lifestyle.
Yeah, or share with your neighbors, or sell back when you guys need it.
Right. So that's using the grid still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta be when.
So that network, that network and sharing. But yeah, we have about, I want to say about 4,000 of our customers out of about 34,000 have rooftop solar, and just a fraction have batteries. I don't know, it's a couple hundred, I'll say. I don't have that stat. So when you look at the numbers, even though it's made sense financially for a while to put solar on your roof, only 80% or 12% have it, 80% don't. And so we have to think about the policy and the rate making for all our members, right? I can't over incentivize the solar when someone's renting and it just doesn't make sense for them to put solar because the landlord won't do it and they're still paying the electric bill. So we have to be mindful of all of them and making sure that we're incentivizing it. But we believe, hey, give our members choice. You want to put it on, great. We're also developing huge utility scale solar that everyone shares in. And we're going to have a community-based renewable energy program coming soon. So if you are a renter and you can't put it on your roof, you'll be able to subscribe into that program and get the benefits.
Waste to energy.
Yes.
Is that the same challenge as biomass, that it's just really expensive? I'd heard
At
that
our scale.
Yeah.
We just don't generate enough trash on this island.
We have to make
No,
more
it doesn't seem
trash.
that way, but we're a small town. I mean, most waste energy plants that are succeeding are taking trash from many municipalities or a large municipality. I actually sat on a task force with the county folks, and we were looking at this issue because we've got the current landfill that's probably good till 2027 as far as the permit. We've got the new site located that they're looking to switch to. I mean, we talked about shipping the trash to Oahu where they do have an incinerator, very expensive. We looked at doing some sort of an incinerator here on the island. There's a host of concerns with that, even if it did pencil out, but it doesn't pencil out. Very small amount of energy. You get a huge reduction in the volume of trash, which can be a benefit, depending on how you view that, but there's a lot of folks also that say, hey, you build the plant, then you have to feed it with trash, which creates more trash, and we'd rather not create the trash in the first place, right? So, yeah, just thankfully it doesn't even pencil out financially, so I don't have to worry about that too much. Any others? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm happy to stick around if anyone else has any other questions for a little while, but thanks for coming out tonight.